Welcome to 1850 Main Street, a place where friends get together and talk about their country and hope for a brighter future. Today, Rob Walgate and Alan C. Duncan from the Public Square are joined by David Zanotti, the CEO of the American Policy Roundtable.
Is it really fair to call what happened on ABC last night a debate, or was it something else entirely?
So this is the kind of programming that you do when you have no sleep. And I'm just looking at the monitors. I understand why Fox News has a distinct advantage because they probably started in hair and makeup at 5 o'clock in the morning. We hadn't gone to bed yet.
Yeah, no makeup.
Yeah. So this is the post-debate, and which I could, 45 years in a business, I think I have the right to say I could end this by simply saying, why bother saying a word? The whole thing was a total fraud. Thank you and good night. That's it. We could do it. It'd be just that easy.
But I feel like anytime the Globetrotters played the Washington Generals, they knew what to expect. So when, and I would consider Donald Trump the Washington Generals, I mean, he should have known how the officiating was going to be. It's a show.
I'm just really glad that this wasn't on NBC because then Lorne Michaels couldn't have made fun of it on Saturday Night Live anywhere near as easily.
Oh, yeah, that'll be fun to see. That'll be fun to see.
I've got so many one-liners in my head that we can actually say out loud. But at least two of us in the room are guilty of having said things that they can't say out loud, and now we're having to say they're sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Mom. But with that being said, we've all talked and texted with people since the debate, and the thing is, I'm getting from people, I'm no Trump apologist, but, and then they talk about the moderators. It's people that are defending Donald Trump that don't want to defend Donald Trump, but they feel like they have to because of the process.
And then there's the other part of it, which people are trying to put themselves in Trump's shoe and say, why didn't he this? Why did it? Look, I'm just going to ask you, turn the volume off, mute it on YouTube, go back. We've been on radio already all morning. I already said this on Michael's show this morning, on your morning show. Put mute, watch it, and then ask yourself, would any of the four people on the screen, would you welcome enthusiastically to be your neighbor? And my answer is categorically, are you kidding me? That was some scary stuff last night. There was something wrong about that whole process. You could feel it coming off the television screen.
To that point, in the previous edition of 1850, we talked about smiling, looking comfortable on stage, maybe even some self-deprecation, some laughter.
I thought I was watching like a dark moment with the orcs and Lord of the Rings. It just had a shadow over the whole thing. All of it.
And the moderators seemed like they really wanted people to know that we're very serious. We're very serious journalists.
Very serious.
Even the commercials that they were showing, they had two commercial breaks. And one of them was the moderators like flying into war zones and stuff, the helmets on. It was like, we are very serious moderators here. That was the whole vibe.
Okay. All right. There's so many ways to go on this thing.
Can we start from, because it was overanalyzed the last time regarding Biden and Trump not shaking hands. Can we start at the beginning?
Right. Yeah. But and we may be the only media source in America that's going to say this right now. So far, I haven't heard it, seen it written anywhere, and I've been checking since 4 o'clock in the morning, checking them all. Replay it. Go to YouTube, replay it. She walked out, walked across the center space, walked into his space, chased him behind the podium, stuck out her hand and said, Kamala Harris. Yeah. Play it. I've played it 5 times.
I was waiting for the people. I was waiting for
you. That's the same thing Michael said this morning.
I was waiting for that. Okay? I was waiting to say that.
And I can't say what it's in my mind. God forgive me. I'll just stop by saying that was the biggest punk move that you could possibly orchestrate by design.
Well, I think it was reflective of the whole night. She was attacking and she was keeping him on the ropes the whole night. That told you everything about how the whole night was going to go. He never got to land an offensive blow throughout the whole night.
I think that was the first punch in the face, though. I don't think he was ready for that. I don't think he was ready for her to come over there. I don't think he was ready for that to happen. If you watch, he kind of stops when she starts.
And the debate was over in the first 10 seconds, which tells me he's out of touch with reality. He does not have a clue what he is up against and what they're doing. And I'm going to tell you what they're doing. I only have one opinion. It's my 11th presidential election. I've been watching debates for as long as I can remember, since 1964. This is all about a psychological play. This has nothing to do with issues. Nothing. I don't care what they're talking about. It has nothing to do with issues. This is a campaign in which the consultants who are controlling Kamala Harris have decided they are playing for the psychological needs of a certain constituency in certain areas and precincts. She is storytelling to gain emotional allies, and that will turn into votes. This has nothing to do with being president, public policy, or anything else.
Well,
It's all drama.
You could tell that from her responses last night and how she answered many questions, starting with, well, in my childhood, or as I was raised. I mean, that's what it went
Judge me
to.
on this. All right, guys, if a person always starts every conversation talking about their childhood, maybe they got issues.
Maybe, but but again, this is like, to your point, I think it's an intentional storytelling
Distraction.
technique.
It's a distraction, intentional distraction.
Well, and she's trying to introduce herself to the American people over and over and over and over again.
Vice President of the United States.
But she's not been a very active
Kamala
vice
Harris.
president.
Did you not know her? Did you know her name?
I mean, I know her name, but
Oh,
I
obviously, the president of the United States didn't know. The former president didn't know her name.
Yeah.
I'm glad she helped. Oh, by the way,
Listen, it was a great strategic play. It was a chess move.
It was.
Of course it was.
It was, and it worked.
fool me once.
I also feel like Joe Biden in June during the debate, he had a very low bar to jump over. He didn't jump. He didn't.
I just can't see Joe Biden jumping over anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, he tripped. He didn't jump over. That's why he's not there. That's why they pushed him out.
Right.
But I also feel she had a low bar to jump over because everyone expected, I talked about this on radio this morning. Anytime there's an upset, I think people would say if she got the better of him in a debate, that would be an upset. The person that pulls off the upset, they stick to their plan. They don't take chances. They don't get outside of her lane. They execute everything the way that it was intended to be.
Yeah.
And that's what she did.
She did. It's run the ball and then it's throw play action. It's stick to the basics and go in and get the job done. And she did.
But here's the challenge that I have. Most people, and I've already heard from hundreds of people, we've already been on a lot of radio stations already, they want to talk about policy. This is PSYOPs. This has nothing to do with policy. Example. Remember her first economic plan?
Does she remember her for a second?
Was it the $50,000?
No, that's the second one. The first one was price controls.
Oh,
yeah.
Have you noticed you haven't heard a word about that? That lasted about 10 hours, and within 10 days it was, I said that. How about this? My plan is $50,000 tax credit if you start a business from the federal government. Okay. And I'm the only person on the stage that's prosecuted. Let me tell you something. You're the only person in that studio that ever, there's only one person in that studio that actually started and operated and owns a business. And it's not you.
Right.
And he could tell you why he didn't. I can't explain. If you start a business, you don't need a $50,000 tax credit because you're not going to make enough money to owe the government $50,000 in taxes anytime in the near future.
And then to
and it's a tax credit. Okay.
Well, what about the child tax credit as well? Giving families, what'd she say, $6,000 to have a child?
So,
he had come out and said they had said they were going to give a $5,000. So she just said, well, we're going to give $6,000. like even that is an idea she was taking from him.
I kind of just shook my head, and this is where I thought, as a moderator, they could have pushed back and asked a question. I believe in the first segment.
How does that work?
Yeah. I believe in the first segment when they were talking.
They don't know what a tax credit is, so they can't ask the question.
Well, in the economics aspect, I believe that she tried to tie him to Wall Street and big banks, and that was him. And then soon after, she quoted Goldman Sachs. Yeah. And I'm like, wait a minute here, like about Goldman Sachs endorsing her plan. And I'm like, hang on a second. Are they good guys or are they bad guys? Are they who?
Now, you can watch this thing, the replay, for a lot of different reasons, to watch at what point in time she actually jumped him and actually the trigger switch, because it did. It was multiple and it deteriorated. Okay, that's fine. We get it. But again, that's PSYOPs. There's no substance here. There's no policy here. There's no good for the country. This is not a job interview for a 48-month job in running the executive branch of our government. This is psychological warfare. And she is a sock puppet of Soros and of John Podesta and of their consulting team to go emotionally connect with the voters they want to turn out in specific precincts in specific states, so that John Podesta, who's sitting in the White House right now writing checks with federal tax dollars, can keep doing it for another 4 years, which would then extend his career from Bill Clinton the whole way through. And Barack Obama would then also have a 4th administrative term in the presidency.
Do you want to know who and what is going to be on your ballot this November? Check out ivoters.com and enter your address and zip code. No name, no phone number, and no email address required. Find out who all the candidates are, who's endorsing them, and who's funding them. We're not bound to any political parties, candidates, or campaigns at iVoters, and we won't tell you who to vote for. You're smart enough to figure that out for yourself. What we will do is give you all the facts and none of the fanfare. Did we mention it's free? Free minds, free speech, free agents. iVoters.com, a public service of the American Policy Roundtable.
So we know Donald Trump needed to speak to certain voters in certain precincts as well. And so this, you've laid out on this program that it's only going to come down, this race is really going to come down to about 30,000 votes in key spaces in key states. Do you think that Donald Trump spoke to any of those voters with anything that would turn them out for him?
Look, Trump horrifically failed. And his failure was to even to I don't understand what on earth would have led him or his team to accept a debate, period. To accept it at all. There is no methodology by which the American media is capable of having an objective debate. It doesn't exist any longer. And I know they said, well, the last one was pretty fair. You're going to call Trump Biden a debate?
Well, I think people say
it was a visit to a nursing home.
Yeah, I think people say that one was fair only because one person stumbled so bad.
Yeah. Within 90 seconds, everyone was going,
that was the distraction. I mean, I'm not a fan of situations I can't control. I know, shocker to both of you. But and I sit and watch those things. When I was watching the June one when Biden started stumbling, like I get up and walk around because I feel bad. I feel like it's elder abuse. My wife, meanwhile, just sits there with the popcorn and like she can handle watching people on the high wire getting ready to fall. And I'm
30
like,
seconds, I'm praying for Joe Biden. I feel so badly for him. That was like, oops, hit the pause. What do we do? For the next 90 minutes, everybody's like,
Can I talk about a policy issue where I felt it was interesting what she left out of an answer?
Sure. Other than the fact
she
that policy,
answered?
Well, no,
and that's
doesn't
the thing. Matter.
When they started talking about Israel and Hamas, and she talked about loving Israel, I was waiting for her to say, and I knew she wouldn't because they're in the state of Pennsylvania, where, in my opinion, she should have selected the governor of Pennsylvania to be her running mate because he's so popular with R's and D's, but he is Jewish. When she said,
didn't pick him.
When she said, I love Israel, I believe that's what she said. I believe she said in the Israeli people, I was waiting for, her to explain that her husband is Jewish. But I don't think she wants people to know her husband is Jewish because those people she needs to talk to get to vote for her don't want to know that her husband's Jewish.
Politics is tough. Public service is tough. And the role that we have permitted the presidency to ascend to in our culture is absurd. People aren't supposed to be little gods running around making decisions for everybody else, particularly if they're puppets on a string. And I don't care whether they're Republicans, Democrats, or independents. We've made a mess of this.
We make this case on the new Kids on the Square broadcast. Just plug for Kids on the Square.
Nice.
The presidency is not all it's cracked up to be.
It's not
a king. It's not a dictatorship. Yeah. Although Donald Trump, I feel like he missed an opportunity when they were talking about the border and they keep talking about the bill. I
want $1 now for every time in media today and for the next 10 days someone says he missed an opportunity.
Well, I know you'll give lots of it to the American Policy Roundtable. So the American Policy Roundtable is going to be a large beneficiary if you get $1 for
no opportunity. That's like saying I went to the fair and shot the rifle and it didn't hit the target and I didn't win the prize. Gee, I couldn't pop the balloons with this thing. No, there was no. He was in the mid. He was at the fun house. Oh. He had no chance at all. I actually think he looked for most of the time, he would at least he would. Okay. Shut the volume off and look at the side by side on the screen.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's no doubt. I do think, though, when it comes to the border, he could have said, we don't need a bill to close the border and enforce the Constitution. And he tried to do that, and I just think he missed the chance to do it effectively.
It's psyops. If I could humbly submit a message to the people of America who are going to pay for all of this, one way or the other. We're now involved in the biggest psyops operation you have ever seen in an American presidential campaign. And it's right there in plain sight. You have ABC. She has dear friends at ABC. You have ABC that sets up a ludicrous and absolute. The process of this debate was absolutely ludicrous. It wasn't a debate. It wasn't an interview. It was a mugging. It was a playground mugging.
It was a live fact checking.
Well, the first text we got from DZ was they had a fact check line ready for him. They're not fact checking live. They had the line ready.
The guy's reading it. It's like, oh, I just happened to have had this. What you have written on your hand? Oh, I made note cards in case he says this. What?
Well, that is the thing. We're talking about Springfield, Ohio, which I was glad to hear Trump talk about.
Somebody talked about it.
Yes, somebody talked about it because there are people going to city council meetings down there that are really struggling, whether all the random details are true or not. There is an issue happening down there.
Now, if I understand the facts of Springfield, and there's still facts coming. First off, the fact that we don't know what's been going on in Springfield, this has been going on for a couple of years.
Maybe we should take a visit down there.
Okay, number one. But I believe that this is not a question of illegal immigrants. The Haitians that are there are legally here. Now, are they legally here on a special provision, et cetera, et cetera? That's a little shaky, but we want to be careful because we're not against Haitians.
No.
We're not against Haitians coming here in need. We're not against immigrants.
We have members of our staff that have been to Haiti many times with medical missions.
Yes. I think when it comes to Springfield, and the Columbus Dispatch reported, it's the sheer numbers. It's a town of 59,000 that over the past few years have an influx of 19,000.
Yeah.
So it's a numbers issue.
Yeah.
What town could sustain that?
Do you have the resources, the fire, the police, everything, civil service? Do you have the resources to sustain that many people?
And so while this is going on, the noble governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine, who is a friend, but I got to tell you something that just confusing me. He's sending state highway patrol people to help and saying we're going to give you $2.5 million to help with the healthcare. $2.5 million for 10,000 people in healthcare. That's not going to last you till noon. No. What on earth? What are we talking about here?
Well, and then the broader question is a question of culture. Can a community sustain an influx of that many people that are not familiar with the culture, and how fast can you do that?
Thank you, Alan, because that's brilliant. That's the macro question of this entire subject that extends across centuries. Nobody's against people improving their circumstances.
Absolutely.
And America's still the best place in the country to live. Everybody that's here came here because somebody in their background came here first. We get it. And I am desperately uncomfortable with the way that Donald Trump talks about this subject.
Sure.
These are human beings. This is a solvable problem. We do not have to move into hysterics.
He didn't have to lead with eating dogs.
Okay.
I was like, that's what you picked.
But I will give him credit for one thing on that, because when he said because Donald Trump is still normal enough that when he sees somebody on television saying, this is what happened to me, he's saying, we better check that out.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what? I'd rather have that kind of a mindset in the White House other than, of course that's not real. Maybe it is.
That's why That's why I was glad that he talked about it.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, dude. Okay, can I give an example from pop culture about what I felt about this debate? The Netflix show Stranger Things. It's if you're not familiar with it, it's a science fiction show.
You forced me to watch it.
Set in the 80s.
Is it still going on, by the way? Is it over?
Season 5 is coming out this year or next year. Yeah. So I actually think there's a lot of
too much goo in it for me.
There's a lot of goo. There is, but there is I think there's some spiritual parallels within that show.
Of course,
demonology,
the whole thing's got supernatural.
Yeah, it does. So, anyways, there's a scene in which the characters in the show are trying to convince everybody that what's happening is really happening.
Yeah.
This world is bad. So they said, you got to water down. It's so bad, people won't believe you. So you need water. Just temper it, water down the truth a little bit. So even if people were eating dogs in Springfield, don't lead with that. You have to say something people can accept. People are going to hear that and think that's insane.
Okay.
So you've got to say it in such a way that sounds like a reasonable person can accept it.
He asked for permission. Now, can we review this critique?
Yes, please.
No,
Go.
no. Now, thank you for bringing that up. I think Stranger Things is the best way of describing what I picked up in this whole process. And there was something, it was so bizarre that it almost seemed otherworldly. It was so bizarre to be, all of it was just weird. The whole thing was weird. So I think Stranger Things is the right example, but I want to bring up a point. It would have been every bit as weird if that had been Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis or Marco Rubio on that stage, because this was a hit job. It's a hit job from a corporation that is wholly on its own agenda. Disney isn't owned and operated by anybody else. Disney's Disney. They don't answer to anybody. ABC did exactly what they wanted to do as a part of that corporate culture. This was the equivalent of finding a kid in the playground and knocking him off his bike and then pummeling him 3-on-1. And that is shameful. And they would have done it no matter who it was, because they are shameful.
They would have probably done it a little bit more had it been Ron DeSantis for all the interaction that Disney and DeSantis.
Probably hates him more.
I think that's exactly right. They would have beat DeSantis up more. Now, I don't think
DeSantis would have agreed to go on ABC. He'd have been smart enough.
Nor should Trump have ever have done so. And he originally said no. What changed his mind? I don't know. But look, what we need to close on is the recognition that this is spiritual and it's psychological. And we are being scammed. And I'm thankful that it was exposed. Donald Trump is not the singular answer to this problem. Here's an entire study by Harvard University showing how 6 to 9 corporations own and operate the American corporate media. We've all seen it. We've done radio on it on the public square. And here's the point. The people in this book want to control our government because they want the power. And Disney exhibited itself last night. The mouse got really creepy last night.
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.